Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah. I'm one of the co-directors at the National Retrofit Hub. And I'm also Dave's partner in crime in life, but also in Home Energy Action Lab in our Community Benefit Society. So this is like a culmination of all of the kinds of activity and work that I've got going on. So I want to make this full screen, but my Zoom thing won't move out of the way. There we go. So this is just to talk, I'm going to get straight into some of our activity. And in the National Retrofit Hub, we've been active for 2.5 years. Myself and my co-director, Rachel, have been enrolled for 2 years. And the vast majority of our activity in the first sort of 18, 20 months came out of our working groups, of which there are these six. Um, and each of those delivered a number of different kind of outputs that were either practical or insights based or policy recommendations, things like that. So things that were of use to our network, but also of some level of influence in the retrofit space. It's worth mentioning as well that we sit on the Warm Homes expert advisory panel to the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero. So we're all about trying to convene activity across the vastness of retrofit, but also leverage the potential of feedback loops that we can be part of convening. So we always say that the National Retrofit Hub is not me and Rachel that you see, but it is the network. And I wasn't intending on showing you the slide on network stats, and this won't be the most up-to-date one, but we've got about 600 or 700 people active in our working groups, and we've got about 7,000 in various I guess those feedback loops and groups of communication, whether it's through our newsletters or whether it's through some of our open meetings, and then our kind of range of strategic partners, other partners and sponsors as well. So you can see those on the screen, the 6 different working groups, and each of those have co-chairs from people across the industry. And then they've been focused on these themes. And the reason that we set out these 6 working groups was in order to tackle those individual big chunky pieces of retrofit, not to create silos of our own though, but just to be able to eat the elephant one bite at a time. And what emerged over the 18 months, 24 months was the clarity that there were cross-cutting themes amongst all of this as well. So the likes of issues around EPCs and MEs show up all across these. Issues around procurement show up across all of these points. What we decided to do, and I'll just stop this one for a second, and that was just some of the outputs around some of the things that we've released, but you can see those on our website. But what we did was earlier this year in March, I'm not expecting you to read this, but just as a way to show how we started to map the cross-cutting themes, the green verticals are those working groups. So you'll recognize the names as being the same thing, the working group 1 being warm, healthy net zero homes, etc. So we just showed to our network in this open meeting where we had, I think, 200 people. We just said, like, these are those working groups, these are those outputs, these little tiles are the output tags from our website of the things that these groups have created. So we've got our archetypes library and our best practice guide, we've got our qualifications and training map, we've got these resources, we've got a state of the nation review on the current state of retrofit delivery across the UK, local advisory retrofit services for local authorities and so on. But as I said, cross-cutting themes were emerging. So we mapped out the cross-cutting themes that were coming up, and EPCs, community retrofit, heritage and whole life carbon, place-based approaches, financing outcomes and procurement. And we turned it out to our network and said to them, of these, we have limited resources. What are the most priority areas that you want to see us put some energy into within the remit that we've got? And the 3 that were chosen for more focus were EPCs and MEs, community retrofit, and financing outcomes and impact. So that was interesting. So we lent into that more. And actually, this is the clean version because it doesn't have all of the sticky notes that shows you that activity. So we went into a broad workshop with the attendees at that open meeting to pull out what it is that people want to start talking about in those themes. Fast forward a couple of months, and we've got those three cross-cutting themes just about up and running with coordinators identified for each of them. But also hot on their heels, procurement and place-based approaches are also, even though we were like, well, their best intentions, we've got limited resources, we're not going to pick up all six. We've kind of picked up five of them. But partly because we've also secured some funding in a in one funding stream for place-based approaches, and just have some very keen program partners who want to support some work around procurement. So we were able to pick up those as well. So with the specific lens on community retrofit, I then just thought it would be useful to open up what we put out into our community. So if you get our newsletter, you'll get these. And this was where we explained what the community retrofit cross-cutting theme is. So with all of our work in the National Retrofit Hub, our step one is to understand what's already happening, what's already out there, mapping a whole range of things so we can understand how not to duplicate efforts, and how to start building out communications with people to the best of our ability, because there's always going to be stuff happening beyond everybody's knowledge. And the other thing was to identify and ask for people to come forward to be coordinators of that group. And those coordinators are these three organizations: CSC, People Powered Retrofit, and HEAL, each volunteering their time to help coordinate and steer the activity of the group. But what we did was we asked in this newsletter publication, we said, look, everybody has asked us to focus on this. We've always said that we wanted to support all pathways for delivery and recognise the value and importance of community as one. So how can we do that? And what we thought was also useful was to go straight to the network and say, can you come back to us with what your definition of community-led retrofit means? Because always these things mean different things to people depending on the context. So we wanted to start from a position of consensus. So where we are now, we have had about 70 responses to this. When you click on this, fill out the form, it takes you to, we're a big fan of an Airtable. I don't know whether it's going to open up now, but anyway, it takes you to what we wanted was a couple of questions that we asked people. What is your definition of community retrofit? What are the key attributes that are absolutely component parts of community retrofit? Crucially, what's not part of it? What key attributes sit outside of community retrofit? And then we asked them practical questions about how often people would want to attend a meeting and how involved people wanted to get. And of the themes that emerged from our open meeting, what are the ones that people wanted us to focus on? So we're in the process of synthesizing that feedback from the 70 responses. We've got a penciled in date for the kickoff meeting for that group, which will be an open meeting for anybody to attend that we'll communicate via our newsletter and our LinkedIn posts. And we'll present back at that the synthesis of the feedback from people who have leveraged in to say what their perspective is and what the focus of the activity should be. So we're trying to work in kind of an agile way, trying to take it from a number of different ways of gathering information and then sharing that information, providing opportunities for people to get involved. And crucially as well, we recognise the limitations that people have to volunteer continuously their time. So though we have volunteer community cross-cutting theme coordinators, as with all our work, we want to try and get under the skin a bit and try and deliver some outputs that are practical and useful for people. And sometimes that takes resource, quite often that takes resource. So we would hope to try and identify some funding opportunities or some sponsorship opportunities within our network and beyond to be able to support the delivery of a project or something like that, so that we can actually resource and sustain the activity in the group in that way. And we've done that in the past as well, and it works quite well. That's the community retrofit cross-cutting theme. It is very related but different to our Retrofit Connect. Retrofit Connect is an actual funded project that we've been invited to participate in. The lead partner is Civic Square in Birmingham, And essentially, Retrofit Connect is a program that supports a cohort of two types of groups, one street demonstrators and the other one is street incubators. There are three street demonstrator projects. They include Civic Square themselves on their Link Road street demonstrator in Ladywood in Birmingham, Retrofit Balsall Heath in Birmingham, and We Can Make with their Andover Road project in Bristol. They're the street demonstrators. Those are quite advanced and mature, community-led, civic society-led retrofit initiatives. They didn't all start from the position of retrofit. Retrofit Balsall Heath did, but We Can Make and Civic Square did not. But they've all landed up recognizing that retrofit is one of the mechanisms whereby they can deliver the needs for their communities. So secure housing, job opportunities, climate activism around the impact in the built environment that any kind of renewal project might have, social and climate justice, etc. All of those are deeply entwined in retrofit, as you'll all know. And then we have 6 street incubators, and those street incubators are different insofar as some of them are less developed on their journey as maybe some of the street demonstrators, and some of them are more developed, but they're coming at it from a different perspective. So that's the cohort, and our role as the National Retrofit Hub is to, over the next 9 months, work with them in what we're calling sponge sessions, where we absorb knowledge and information from them and the problems that they're facing. We try and build out a program of technical clinics to help support them on the issues that they're having, or to head off some issues of the past before they come to them, because we'll know they're coming from our industry expertise and knowledge. And then try and develop a series of ways to help them work through some sticky problems. So, for example, one of our cohorts had an issue with PAS. It was providing a lot of problems and blockers for them. And so we paired them up with the authors of PAS to try and work through the problem, not to try and avoid the problem. So to try and work through those things. That will also include a series of in-person meetups, and we'll be trying to do our best to showcase and disseminate the work that's going on in those cohorts. Our intention as the National Retrofit Hub is to try and create the infrastructure so that we can seek, or at least attempt to seek, funding to be able to support other cohorts to go through the same process. So you're just building out the capacities as much as possible in those community led organization and groups. But for the time being, this is a one singular cohort that we are supporting, and it is sort of as much as it is a feedback loop for us into industry, it's also a learning opportunity for us and a way that we can disseminate the knowledge of what's happening up and down the country, because there's a lot. When you start to scratch the surface, there's an awful lot of really amazing projects that are happening. So that is our Retrofit Connect program. We also published a piece that was sort of kicking that off when we were interviewing Jazz Tippett, and she's one of the community coordinators with We Can Make in Bristol. And so this is a little bit of the story of their project that's happening as well. But it's also, it's been a lot of work in the background about getting all the kind of pieces of infrastructure in place around communication and just coordinating all the different organizations. And come next week, we're starting in earnest with our program of in-person meetups, technical clinics, and so on that will run until June 2026. And I think that's everything.